right, we're
Or
recording.
we sure are. We're right here on the Super Awesome Podcast. I am Captain Pete, and I'm here with Baru. Butters, what the fuck is going on with you?
Not a whole lot. Got the Jeep back from the shop.
You got the Jeep fixed.
That's probably the only thing that's happened all week.
And so that thing just blew all the coolant lines?
Apparently, unless old boy was exaggerating,
Were
but
they just rusty? Like
I mean,
going
it was
into the
just
radiator, coming out where?
old and they started to wear out. It's probably been overheating this whole time.
Because I know that Jeep, I know that Jeep is rusty as fuck. Didn't we, I was looking at it like underneath it, and I'm like, hey Butters, I don't know about this, but the frame is rusted, like the
There's
hole in.
some part in like the trunk that's a little bit rusted through, but as far as Jeeps go, like it still has a frame.
I guess. Fuck that Jeep.
I agree. Fuck them Jeeps.
Anybody out there listening? Super Awesome Podcast is not a fan of the four-door Jeep
Do
Wrangler.
not support four-door Jeep Wranglers.
Uh,
Oh, and I saw probably best thing that's happened to me all week is I saw a mint like jet black G Series shorty yesterday
oh yeah,
driving down the road and I was amped about it.
those things are sweet. Didn't you say the the van that you had? You sold it to a guy, and he like immediately took it on the interstate
Yeah,
and like
the speedo only goes like 55 and then he messaged me like 15 minutes. He was like, "Oh, all the belts flew off on me on 75." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you on 75?"
no, dude. I'm like, I drove that thing for like just around the block a little bit, and I'm like, this thing is fucking sketchy.
I drove it to Columbus and back, but I took back roads the entire way.
Yeah, I would never take that thing on the interstate. Um, but I this week haven't done really shit. I went fishing and I didn't catch shit. I went fishing twice and I didn't catch anything. I hooked one and it got off the hook, but other than that, it was too. I wasted a couple worms.
You
That's
just
basically
fishing
what.
all the time?
Yeah, there's a fucking lake right over here, so I just go fishing all the time.
Yeah. You
But
eat them or you just throw them back?
I've caught like three like decent sized catfish, and everybody's always like, "Oh, you should keep that fried up." I'm like, I don't bring like a bucket to put them in or anything. You know what I mean? Like when I catch
Yeah.
them, I don't like have a plan, so I throw them back.
No hot scream.
But I did see a fucking beaver, which surprised me. 'Cause, you know, down here you're like, is that a fucking what is that moving in the water? You're like, is that a fucking alligator or some shit? I saw this like thing moving fast as shit, and I was like, what is that? Uh, and then when it flipped around, and I saw the fucking beaver tail flap on the water, and I was like, holy shit, a beaver!
Hot scream.
It's probably the most exciting thing that's happened to me. And then today is the Super Bowl, so probably gonna be doing that later. Probably, I'm absolutely gonna be doing that. Hopefully, the Kansas City Chiefs lose. I don't really want the Eagles to win, but I don't want the Chiefs to win. So there's that.
I don't know junk about it.
Yes, I know you're one of those fucking homosexuals that doesn't like football.
Shut up, man. It has nothing to do with football.
Yeah, if anything, you'd probably like seeing men wrestle around. But either way, on the Super Awesome Podcast this week, we are going over the movie 30 Days of Night. Let's see. What's some information here on 30 Days of Night? 30 Days of Night was released October 19th, 2007. It's directed by David Slade, and it's actually produced by Sam Raimi, you know, Evil Dead guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They
Should have
tried to
been
get
directed by Sam
they
Raimi.
tried to get him to direct it, but he didn't. He passed on directing it, but he did produce it. It was directed by David Slade, starring Josh Hartnett, who's like not in much. Melissa George, who's the blonde lady. Danny Houston, who's the head vampire guy, and he's pretty fucking badass. Ben Foster's in this movie, and Mark Boone Jr. This movie's based on uh, the graphic novel 30 Days a Night. And this movie had a budget of 30 million and the box office took in 75.5 million dollars, which is pretty good. I think they got a higher budget than they were expected. So it did decent in the box office. Nothing, it's not like a smash hit or anything.
Yeah.
But this movie is considered kind of like a cult classic. It's got a decent fan base. When I was reading stuff about it, the graphic novel actually sounds pretty cool, and there's a whole bunch of different like comic booky things on this movie.
I didn't know it was based on a graphic novel.
Yeah, so apparently the guy that wrote the graphic novel, he turned it into a screenplay. He had been working on the novel thing since like the 90s, or like he had been wanting to make it into a movie, and they made it into a screenplay. Then he turned it into a graphic novel, and because of the graphic novel's success, that's how it, eventually turned into being a movie. And in my opinion, pretty sweet movie. This last time I watched it, I was not as into it. It's mainly in the beginning, like a lot of your main actors, like Josh Hartnett and Melissa or whatever. The acting is just kind of
Yeah.
But the vampires make the movie. Like you want more vampire because they're fucking pretty badass.
I like the vampires. I'm just trying to understand what they're about. They're inconsistent.
Well, all right. So in
But
the
we'll
movie,
get into that.
yeah, in the movie 30 Days a Night, it takes place in Barrow, Alaska, which I think is a real place. It's at the tippy top of Alaska, and during a certain part of the year, every year, they end up 30 days a night because the Earth is round, and the tilt of its axis in relation to the sun, it's just dark for a fucking month. And most of the people leave the town during this time. They head south, probably South Alaska, but they head south. And so the town's pretty isolated, and there's not very many people left. But all these dadgum vampires show up, and they start fucking everybody up.
Yeah.
And that's basically the movie. 30 Days a Night, vampires show up, kill everybody. That's the movie in a nutshell. But in the beginning of the movie, there's like strange things going on. And Josh Hartnett, he's the sheriff. And he's like, what in the hell's going on in this town? They first notice like all the satellite cell phones are all burnt.
All the sled dogs been murdered.
Yeah, all the sled dogs have been just brutally murdered. And a few various other things where basically like they're kind of shutting off the town from everybody. Like if it wasn't isolated enough, somebody's going around and making sure that these people will have like no way to talk to anybody outside of the town, no way to escape the town.
I think I would have been suspicious pretty quickly if that was going on.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, how did they gather up all the satellite phones and burn them?
I don't know, apparently
the stranger
that
guy,
strange hobo guy was pretty sneaky.
yeah, Okay, so in the beginning, Ben Foster, he's called the stranger, and he just kind of shows up into town, and you come to find out throughout the movie, he's the one that's kind of been sabotaging the whole town, and he's all creepy. He's like, I don't know what y'all been talking about. He's got like black teeth. And he gets like arrested because he's like at the diner. He's like, I'd like some raw hamburger meat.
Why did he turn Scottish?
I don't know. And the
I
sheriff's
liked
like,
his accent, but I didn't like the pitch of his voice.
yeah. He's like, hey, come back different now. He's got like a weird, I don't know what he's doing with the voice there, but he's all creepy. And he's basically like the little helper for the vampires to fuck over the town before vampires show up. And he's like, you're all dead. You're a dead man. Bleh.
I don't talk to that man. It's so high pitched.
But yeah, so they chain up Ben Foster in the jailhouse, and that's when stuff starts going, you know, even more south. Well, we gotta mention in the beginning, there's like kind of this uh broken up love thing, like they're divorced or something. Our main character, the sheriff, Eben is his name, Eben, and Melissa, and her name is Stella, I think. They're like on a break or something, and she was actually trying to leave town, but she gets crashed into by the giant chainsaw thing. What the fuck was that thing?
It's like an ice cutter or something.
I don't
I
know
don't know
what
why
that.
that dude was just driving it around when he should be back in town getting ready for the old month of nighttime.
Yeah, you'd think he'd be storing that thing up for the next month, but no, he's just driving
Oh
around and
no, he said he was on his way back from the airport
yeah.
because he was on his way back to storing it, but it's pretty last minute.
Yeah, but I'm just like that thing. What was that thing doing at the airport? Did they need an airplane chopped in half or something? I don't know what that big ass machine chainsaw thing was. I
Old
don't know if
girl was
she's
sleeping on getting to the airport on time. Usually you got to be there 2 hours ahead of time.
no, she
Take it a
was
bit more seriously, Stella.
yeah, she was fucking procrastinating. I don't like anybody named Stella, by the way. Piece of shit. But yeah, so she gets stuck there, so she has to, stay there for the whole month. Uh, but yeah, they're in the town and they're basically just everything's going to shit. There's that really, really cool shot. Well, there's a in the very beginning, there's this scene where the guy jumps through the window, which I thought was kind of obnoxious looking. Like they're just like hanging out in their house, like, oh boy, the power's out. Good thing the generator's working. And then a vampire just jumps through the kitchen window,
Yeah.
slams on the table.
So that guy, it was their sled dogs that got killed, and they were all sad.
Yeah.
And then vampire jumps through the window, grabs the wife, scratches the husband. Husband's hiding underneath the trailer, and it wasn't till day 7 that he
That he start
started turning.
Yeah, he started turning.
Mm,
Which they
And
weren't.
that's what bothered me about kind of the rest of the movie, because everyone else turned immediately.
Yeah, it took that guy a long time to turn, and the head vampire guy, I think his name was Barrow or whatever. He told them specifically to not turn anybody because he didn't
Which
want.
they all fucked up.
Yeah, they turned like a few people. They turn.
And there's multiple times where they would bite somebody and that person would still be alive and then they just run away.
Yeah,
Like,
uh,
yeah, y'all are not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah. They turned a few people when they weren't supposed to. Um, fun fact about the vampires in this movie is that they. Well, also another fun fact about the movie. This whole movie is shot in New Zealand, which is kind of cool. Uh, and like all the blood and stuff and everything is it's a ton of practical effects in this movie, like the stunts and the blood, their claws, teeth, all that shit. uh but where was I going? Oh, the fucking fun fact, the language. They had a professor, like linguistic professor, like create their clicky language or whatever that they're talking. They had a guy like create the whole language for it, so they're not just going some guy
I figured that's
actually.
what they're doing.
No,
They have very repetitive words.
some guy actually like made the language specifically for the vampires in this movie.
He just said he did that for a paycheck.
He just wrote down a bunch of shit. You're gonna go cuckoo, cackle, cuckoo. But yeah, Barrow tells them not to change people, and they ended up changing people. Like the little girl. Can we talk about the little girl scene?
No, I hated that scene.
Why?
Why could she speak English?
I don't know. Well, the other one that got turned, the people that got turned would speak English as they were changing. But yeah,
I
she
know,
did.
but it pretty much implied that she was one of the main group of vampires, that she wasn't part of the town.
That wasn't implied. She's
It,
part of the town.
everybody said that they didn't know who she was.
Well, fuck, I don't know. They had to have a creepy little girl scene, and then one of the great, they actually used practical effects and then laid it over with like CG to make it like seamless. But when they chopped the little girl's head off, they had like a fucking axe thing that chopped into like a latex like neck mold that they made with blood shooting out of it and shit. And then they laid that over with the computer onto the actual little girl. So you get the nice chopping of the head off,
That's what's up.
which is great. And one of my favorite things about this movie is how fucking brutal it is. Lots of blood, lots of beheading, and you know, it's aggressively violent. Unlike a lot of, because I think a year after this movie came out, Twilight came out, and that's when like all vampire shit got really pussified. It's like I'm a
Twilight's
vampire.
the sequel. That's what happened to all the vampires when they walked away at the end.
What? There's a sequel to this?
No, the Twilight series is a whole sequel to this movie.
Fuck that. I've never watched any of that shit.
I think some girl was watching it at her house, and I was watching it with her, and I was just pointing out all the plot holes.
I'm just like, this movie, in my opinion, is what a vampire should be. They fucking are brutal. They're super strong, really hard to kill. Uh, and these have like all fucked up teeth and claws and stuff. But they drink people's blood for food. That's pretty brutal. I don't want to
They
see a fucking vampire movie where it's a love story.
they were very wasteful with the blood, though.
Yeah, they just had it all over their
They
faces
just
the
take
whole
one
time.
bite, they just be like, "All right, next person." Come on, man. You had a whole person right there. It's like 16 quarts of delicious blood.
Okay, I mean they were a little frivolous with the blood, but what do you want? Do
And
you
there's
want
a
them to?
couple people that they just killed and ran away.
Yeah, like what's the guy Bo, the guy that's played by what's his name? Mark Boone Jr. There's a really cool scene where he takes the same chainsaw truck thing, and he's like, "I'm gonna take out some of these vampires myself," because they got to create a diversion. Because there's like, okay, most of the town, it's like all destroyed like immediately, and then there's like a few of them. They've managed to get into like an attic, and they're surviving in there for like about a week. And then they have to develop a plan. They have to get to the what's it called? It's called the Utilidor. Some fucking building that has that big grinder in it. It's
Yeah.
like a utility building. I don't know. But their plan is they have to get to there for some reason, and they need like a distraction. And Bo, Mark Boone Jr., is like, I'm gonna take out some of them, and he gets in the big chainsaw machine thing, and he's driving through the town, and he's chainsawing them up with the fucking front end of it, which is all practical, by the way. That thing, it really had a chain thing going on it, but it had like rubber flaps, instead of like real blades.
Not really.
Yeah. So he's going through the town and he's mowing down some of the vampires. He's opening up the door, fucking single hand shotgunning it out the side, blowing some heads off on his way, and then he crashes into that building, which is all practical, by the way. They did crash that thing into a fucking building. And then he's gonna like, oh, I'm gonna blow myself up. You're not gonna get me. And then when he
Did he
blows
use
up,
road flares to blow himself up?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I was like, is that dynamite or what? What the fuck was that? So he has some kind of makeshift bomb thing, and he doesn't die. He blows up, but he just only gets fucked up. And then they drag him out of there, and Barrow's like, "Black cock, black cock, black duck." And he just stomps on his head. They didn't eat that guy. He fucking crushed his skull, which was also a practical effect. They made a fucking version of that guy's head with like a collapsible skull inside. So when he actually stomps him, it was like, which is why that looks so good. The
Main
practical effects in
vampire
this
guy
movie.
was dope. I was upset when he got.
No, the main vampire is fucking badass, and so is the bald headed one. That guy initially only was supposed to have like one scene,
He was like the secondary main dude.
No, that's what I'm saying. He was only supposed to
That
have like
was
one scene,
there's
but
like a list of all their names and who they are online.
no, every vampire has a name, and it's because they're all from the fucking graphic novel comic book.
The old comic book.
But the bald guy, he was only supposed to be in it for a brief little period of time, but he ends up, since he was such a good, he was a freaky looking fucking vampire. So he ended up with like way more screen time than initially written. And some of the, like the character design, they gave him like weirder looking eyes. I don't know if you noticed that in the movie. Like they have like kind of almost alien-ish eyeballs
I
with
thought they
those.
were just Puerto Rican.
No, they weren't Puerto Rican. Um, yeah, Bo does that last stand thing, blows himself up, gets his head smashed in. Um, but that's a lot of the movie. It's them kind of running around the little ragtag group, and like people start slowly falling off, like as they're going throughout. One thing that was annoying in the movie when they're in the attic and that fucking old senile man, the guy's dad is like, I gotta get in here, blah," and then he's like gonna blow their whole hiding
Yeah,
spot.
just let him go. It's not
Yeah, I'm
gonna
like,
last forever.
leave that fucker out there. And then when he does get out, he escapes through the bathroom window, typical fucking movie thing. He hops out the window. And I'm like, what old fucking man would do that? Anyway, even if he was senile, he's like, I'm getting out of here. I'm hopping out the window. Uh, the guy, the guy's son goes out after him, and he's like, Dad! He's just yelling and shit. I'm like, these vampires have just ruined this whole town, and you're going out like screaming, yelling, looking for your dad. I'd be like, fuck, I don't know. I'd be like, he's
Just let
fucked, I
him
guess.
let him go at that point.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be outside. Like, I might have like taken a peek out the window, like, well, he's gone. I'm not gonna
As
go out.
most you do for Clay.
If he's all old and senile and jeopardizing all of our safety, I'd be like, fuck. I ain't
Dad
going
would
yelling
just
out
be
there for him.
wasted the whole time, yelling at vampires.
Um, but yeah, the whole movie, they kind of just end up in different little spots. Uh, and they're kind of just hiding from the vampire. The amount of times they move from one spot to another after the initial attic part, uh, I was like, how are they not getting caught?
Yeah, Evan would just randomly be like, "We got to get going,"
Yeah, they take off from one spot to
for no
another,
reason.
and they don't get caught.
Like they've already ransacked this place. They're probably not going to come back, and he just be like, we gotta move."
Yeah, there's only so many buildings. There's like 10 buildings in the whole fucking town. And they keep moving from one spot to another because they got to get to the Utilidor. I don't know why that was the grand
Well,
plan.
yeah,
I
what
don't know.
was their goal to get there?
I don't know. I think they could just hold out there longer.
Why don't
But
they go to old boy's house? Didn't he have a more far away house? Bearded guy that
yeah,
died with
Bo,
a chainsaw car.
I don't know. He lived further out, but I don't. That's what I'm saying. Like this last time I watched the movie, like the vampires are really cool, but all the other characters are like somewhat stupid, especially fucking sheriff main guy. His whole plan was like kind of dumb. Uh, and yeah, I don't know. It's hard to care about him. I don't know. I do love the there's kind of the iconic scene where the girl's walking through the town. She's like, "Help, help." And they're
I had
like,
to look up who the fuck that was. Like, why was she walking around?
apparently
But
they didn't kill her.
yeah, she was in her house with her parents, and her whole family got murdered, and she escaped out the back.
Hmm.
So I had to pause the movie and was like, why is this girl just walking around?
Well, they were using her as bait to try to bait out any of the.
Oh, you mean I'm talking about her name was Gail. Like towards the end, uh, Stella had to like save her and turned into a whole fiasco.
Gale. You talking about the bitch that was about to get double teamed by those guys?
No, she was covered in blood, and she was just walking like she
Oh,
was.
the little girl. Oh, the other
Yeah,
little girl.
And
No, I don't know
the
where
one
the
you're
fuck.
talking about, yeah, they were trying to bait people out.
Yeah. Um,
Um, and then when she couldn't get anybody to come out, is Marlowe his name? Main guy, main vampire.
I think it's Marrow, not Marlowe. We're probably both fucking it up. What the
But he
fuck
did
is his name?
one of my favorite lines in
It is
any horror
Marlowe.
movie.
Fuck.
What have you been calling him?
I'm gonna call him Marrow. Fuck. All right, Marlowe. Whatever the fuck.
But he
Wait,
said that dope line.
no, I was gonna get at the iconic where she's like, help, help. And she's like, I did what you said. And then she's all like, uh, please, God. And then he does the, like, probably the most iconic scene in the movie. It's only like 2 words. He goes, God, no God. It's pretty fucking
I
sweet.
liked it. That character was just sorrowful the whole time.
No, that's what I'm saying. You like the vampires more than the people. You're kind of rooting for the vampire. I was.
Yeah, Marlowe was dope, and he died in a stupid way.
Yeah, let's get to that. So as they're going along, their little team of people is dwindling. The old man dies. The fucking his son dies. They who else dies? A couple other people die as they're trying to get to the utilidor, and on their way to get to the utilidor, they run into Eben's like deputy guy, like his the other sheriff guy that you see in the beginning of the movie. I think his name is Billy.
Yeah,
They end up in his house, and they see that Billy has killed his entire family because he didn't want them to get eaten by the vampires. And Eben's like,
and
"How
Eben
could
makes
you?"
him feel especially bad about it, even though he's already upset.
He's like, "How the fuck could you do
Like
that?"
jokes him and stuff. So now he's even more depressed.
I do think Billy jumped the gun a little bit, literally.
Yeah, maybe.
He's like, "I heard the screams, so I killed my family."
It
And
was
then
pretty far out from all the happenings.
yeah, I'm like, "You're still fine in your house. They haven't even got to you yet. You killed your whole family like preemptively." And
Yeah,
he's
how
like,
do you
"But
even know that stuff was going on? He was pretty far away from it.
yeah." He's like, "The dag blasted gun jammed, and I couldn't kill myself."
Why can't he just eject the bullet and put it back in?
Yeah, just like rack it a couple times and then fucking kill yourself. But yeah, so they eventually make it to the utilidor, and Billy's there. It's like Billy, the sheriff, his brother, and that one lady that was going to get double teamed. I think that's about it. And then Melissa or whatever, Stella, she like finds that girl underneath a K5 blazer, and they're just hanging out under the blazer because she found that girl. I don't know. That shit was dumb. But
Bald vampire makes his way into the utilidor.
yeah, one vampire makes it into the utilidor, and that's where they had that fucking sweet ass scene where the vampire just kind of shows up out of nowhere, and then he's like attacking Billy, bites Billy's neck off, and he doesn't die immediately, and then they're like we're tussling around, and the vampire falls into the fucking meat grinder.
Yeah, Billy kind of tackles him into it. And I thought
Yeah,
Billy was going to fall in too, but he just got his arm got.
yeah,
And what
his
bothered me is he started turning immediately. He was screaming about his arm, and then he started doing a high-pitched vampire scream.
yeah.
So
Apparently
he
that
turned within seconds when it took, what's his name, John or something? It took him 7 days to start turning.
yeah no, it, the the rate at which you turn into a vampire is there's a lot of discrepancy there.
And
You
also
either turn right away or it takes a fucking week.
and the curse in general seems to be inconsistent because the first guy that got scratched, he seemed to turn into like a zombie, like he couldn't control what he was doing. He just immediately started attacking Eben. And
Yeah.
when Eben turned,
Well, Eben does it differently.
what the fuck? He was perfectly okay with being a vampire. He was like, "Yeah, I got this.
No, that's
Go
that's
get
where
the other ones."
the end of the movie is is fucking annoying. But no, so Billy, the vampire, falls into the grinder. Billy gets his hand like meat grinded off, and then he's going, like, he's doing all the really dramatic
Yeah, do the
screams.
screech, Cade.
I can't. It's not going to pick up on this fucking mic anyway, even if I tried. It never does. But he's like turning immediately. He's just screaming, and then one of them chops his fucking head off with an axe. And apparently, that part of the movie almost gave this movie an NC-17 rating. Was the brutal fucking scream and head chop off part.
There's like 4 other head chop offs.
I know. I'm like, they
That one
killed a
was
little girl like a long time ago in the movie. So what the fuck? But anyway, like Billy starts turning like immediately, and then they're sitting in there, and Stella's like with the little girl, like, "Oh, we're freezing to death." And Eben, his great grand plan is, he's like, Billy's corpse is over here. He's like, we're not strong enough to fight him like how we are. So I'm gonna. He has a syringe out of nowhere. Also, just pulls a syringe out of his ass, and then he takes Billy's corpse vampire, just recently turned blood, and injects it into his own arm. And then he turns almost immediately, but he can control it because it's different. He didn't get scratched or bitten. He just injected himself. Fucking dumb. But
I
that
don't know
whole
why
part was stupid.
nobody else had like their faculties together when they turned.
Yeah, no, he kept it together all the way to the fucking sunrise. But no, so yeah, Eben injects himself with recently infected blood, and then he goes out and has a 1v1 match with the head vampire, which is also kind of weird.
Yeah, all the other vampires just stood to the side like they were watching a breakdancing competition.
Yeah, all the other vampires just stood and watched while we have this final showdown between Eben and Marlowe. It was a decent fight. It was pretty cool fight, but when you're thinking about it and everything, you're like, this is kind of stupid. And Eben, the way he defeats Marlowe was like kind of annoying because Marlowe jumps at him with his mouth open, like, "Rawr!" And like Eben just puts his fist like straight to his face, and that's how he
Yeah,
kills him.
yeah, it was lame.
Yeah, it was stupid.
Marlowe deserves better than that.
Yeah, he's been like this badass vampire the whole movie, and he dies in like a pretty fucking lame way. Uh, but that's about it. You have like 3 or 4 survivors. Eben fucking takes out the main guy,
Yeah,
and he
all the
doesn't turn.
vampires, the remaining vampires are just like, all right, and just walked away for
Yeah,
some reason.
they just fucked off. Like, oh, main guy's dead. I guess we'll leave this town alone, even though they set the whole fucking thing on fire. Like, I guess I missed that part. Yeah, they set the whole town on fire. They like open up the oil lines and shit. But the whole town's on fire. You have like 3 or 4 survivors. Eben, even though he turned vampire, he doesn't go crazy. And then they go on to the hill where the sun is rising. So the whole month has passed at this point. And the sun's rising, and Eben just burns up in the sun.
Yeah, it's a weird way to off yourself. I'm sure he
Yeah.
could have found a gun or slit his wrist or something. I guess he can't slit his wrist, but I'm sure they could have found a gun and shot him instead of like,
We
you're
have
burned to
to.
death, die really horribly.
Well, vampires, they either die by the sun, you got to behead them, or stake through the heart, or whatever. There's only a few ways to kill a vampire.
They could have found at least a crazy painful way for him to die.
Or
You
he
can
could have.
punch him in the mouth really hard.
They could have figured out a way for him not to die, and they could have just like opened up a blood bank that only gives him blood, and he lives in a basement. I don't fucking know. The ending sucked, I think.
Yeah.
But super awesome ratings on a super awesome rating scale for 30 Days of Night. I've seen like Rotten Tomatoes and shit are giving it like a 50%. I'd give it higher than 50%. I'd probably give it a 70% on my super awesome percentage rating scale. 70%. It's not as good as I used to like this movie a lot, and then after this
Yeah,
watch,
I agree.
I
I
was
thought it
like,
was like great when I first watched it, and then rewatching it, I started noticing too many issues.
yeah.
So I'll give it. It's worth watching, but I give it a 6.
6
6,
on super
but
awesome
still worth
rating scale.
watching.
Yeah. If you like brutal
As far as
violence,
like vampire movies go, it's probably a 9 or a 10. It's pretty up there with the
no, I think it's got.
compared to fucking Twilight.
Yeah, I mean, after this, I don't know why vampires got so fucking popular around this time period. Like after, like right after this movie came out, it was Twilight had like 4 movies. There was like TV shows like Vampire Diaries or whatever the fuck, Vampire Diarrhea.
It's because girls wanted to cram them.
Yeah, all these girls want to fuck these
They wanted that
vampires.
cold dicking.
Give me that corpse cock. That's stupid.
They wanted that corpse grinder.
I come blood. But you said corpse grinder, so I had to do a Cannibal Corpse song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would recommend this movie. It's got some of the most unique vampires in my opinion. Really brutal. But yeah, not as good as I remember it being. But still, I'd watch it. I'd recommend it if you want to watch something. If you haven't seen it, and you're like, I want to watch something that's brutal, check out 30 Days of Night. And we don't know what we're gonna do next week, so we'll have to. And this week is not what we said we were going to do in the last one. We said we're going to do some Sky Captain bullshit that Gavin suggested. And Gavin's not here, so fuck that.
Yeah.
Not doing some fucking Angelina Jolie bullshit. I think that's who that's in that movie.
I never looked into it.
Neither did I. But we don't know what we're going to do next week. But tune in to the Super Awesome Podcast, and we'll talk about something else.
All right.